My name is Vanessa Cardenas, and I'm a betrayal recovery specialist. No one studies betrayal unless they've been through it. And I went through it, yes. And now, as a result of working with me, my clients reclaim their inner strength and a sense of who they are. I love this work. I truly do. I was recently asked if doing this work triggers me. And it doesn't, actually. It it fills me up. And when I say this, I get a lot of pushback for it. I'm grateful. I am. I know that sounds strange, but I flirting with the chick that cuts their hair, liking a bikini shot on Instagram. Those are little micro ones, depending on your relationship. And again, every single relationship is completely different and completely unique. You might be okay with that. If you both have the same understanding, the same parameters, the same sense of what's acceptable and what is not. And if that's acceptable in your relationship, then that's fine. That's absolutely fine. There's no judgment here. My judgment comes into play only when both parties have a little bit of a difference of opinion. Usually, those that come through my office and sit on my couch tell, I didn't know there was anything wrong with that. I didn't know that that upset you. Well, when your partner indicates that, sort of means, you ready for it? Your boundaries aren't crystal clear. And we need to make those boundaries. And we need to modify the boundaries, maybe year after year, because new things come into play. So I didn't know that I needed to say, yeah, you're not supposed to like other women's half naked photographs. I never said it because when we started our relationship, that wasn't a thing. And then as it started to happen, the internet exploded and everything became in play. I didn't realize I needed to say it. I thought it was kind of obvious. Well, it seems in his book, that wasn't so obvious. And that became an issue because I didn't have clear boundaries. Well, now I do. So you want to make sure that you have clear boundaries. We're not going to spend the time going through all of them this evening because I do want to have time for open coaching where I answer your questions. So you want to be clear, and you are in control of your own boundaries. Now, one of the things about boundaries, and I do this demonstration live, I'm going to try to do it, even though I'm live, I'm going to try to do it on screen for the benefit of all. So we have boundaries. Okay. We can either put them right up against us, which means that they're right here, like right here. People can invade our space. Okay? Because not only is it physical space, it's emotional space. We can put it out. Now we have about a foot of space. Again, both physical and emotionally. Okay? We can put people at arm's length, setting a boundary. We could go even further and extend it out. Now think of it this way. Think of it for those of us that drive cars. That's what I actually enjoy to do. So I come in on Sunday mornings before I do my Sunday group and my Sunday clients. Well, I park the car. Now, I do not park right next to the door. Now, I could. All the spots are empty. Not a problem. I park in the middle of the parking lot. I'm far enough away from the door that I get a little bit of exercise, which is great. And there aren't many people that come into the building on Sunday. I know that. But sure enough, when I leave at about 4 or 5 o'clock, it never fails. There is a car parked right next to me. The entire parking lot is empty, but there's that one car parked right next to me. And I feel it, that it is crossing a boundary. No, I don't have signs all over my car that says don't park next to me, but that's kind of common sense. People a little bit of space, especially if you have a parking lot. It's the same thing with our boundaries. We think that people should know them. They don't. Because they're imposing their own boundaries, which might not even be in existence. They might not have a boundary. They might be comfortable with getting up on all in your face when they talk to you. And you're like, whoa, back up a little bit. I need some physical distance. That's why one of the things that I do advocate, especially when you're getting into it with your partner, distance. Get some space in between you. The best example that I can give for this is when I was going through my own betrayal and my husband and I were trying to work on things. He would always come over to me. Our counselor suggested this as a tool to be able to help me process everything, was to come over to me and give me a hug and to acknowledge that he understands that I'm freaking out and that a trigger has happened or something has gone on. Not for nothing, for me, and again, every relationship is different. For me, this was the worst thing. No, I don't want to be touched. Get away from me. Ugh. And it made it worse. So then we had to try it gently, that he would reach out and put his hand on top of mine. I know that you're going through something. I'm right here. I'm not leaving. Right here. That was a little better. I have to admit, that was better. He acknowledged that he was there and that he would stay. Like, he wouldn't leave me in my state of just freaking out. That was better. Now, as we progressed, because again, our counselor really wanted us to hug. And I was like, I don't like this. He would hug me and he would feel me just completely. I was like stone. And it was almost involuntary. I didn't even realize I was doing it because I felt like it was crossing a boundary. And I needed to establish that boundary that when I'm in the thick of it, I can't be touched. The other problem with it was, and we didn't quite identify it initially, was that the configuration of my kitchen, every time he came to hug me, I was in a corner. Didn't like that. Didn't like that at all. So while my husband was trying to do what our counselor suggested and trying to be there, it was making the situation worse. And because I wasn't communicating, I don't want to be touched type of thing, because again, I was following the direction of our counselor against my own better judgment. And that's where I'm going with this. You know yourself best. I appreciate you being here this evening. I appreciate the fact that you are seeking help, because that was the mistake I made. It was truly the mistake I made. Not for nothing. I'm a smart woman. I have a psychology degree. I'm a C-suite executive. I thought I had everything until my husband said those 3 words to me. I've met someone. My whole world shattered completely in an instant. And for 6 months, 6 long, agonizing months, I thought I could do it on my own. I'd get all the books. I'd read everything. But I wouldn't tell a single soul. No one knew other than our children, because I didn't let the toothpaste out of the tube. Not at all. Because I knew once I let it out, I would have all those judgments all around me, and I didn't want that. And it wasn't until I finally begged God, source, spirit, that I need a reprieve from feeling like this. It was awful. We all know how that feels. And like a thunderbolt, I heard it. I heard it. You have to help someone else. And I thought to myself, are you serious? I'm asking you for help, And you're telling me I need to help someone else? Yes. So I relented and said, sure, yes, absolutely, whatever type of thing. I was so dismissive of it. But the next day, better. I did. I actually took a shower. The third day, oh, it was a good day. Fourth day, I got that shove. You promised. And that's when I dove into betrayal recovery head first. And since 2017, this is what I've been doing. I have been hosting support groups for women and men. I started working with men as well because initially I thought, oh, I just work with women. I'm a woman. I know how it feels. And then I had a gentleman approach me, and that opened that gate as well. So with that all being said, I want you to know that I am not the be all end all. Absolutely not. I have a great deal of wisdom. I have a great deal of knowledge. I have been studying this exclusively since 2017. There is not one single person that has been the be all end all. That everything they said, everybody's relationship is completely different. So there will be things that will be said during Q&A that you'll be like, no. That doesn't feel right. And then there will be other things like you're like, yes, absolutely. Absolutely, I agree with that. And I'd like to implement that. And that's great. What I invite you to do is to take what you can use and simply toss the rest. It's absolutely fine. I take no offense whatsoever. I want to give you as much information as I possibly can in the time that's allotted. And we go from there. You can find a tremendous amount of resources on my website. You can also pick up my book, both books actually, both available on my website and on Amazon. They were not written as a commercial or academic success. Not at all. They were the guidebook that I needed when I went through betrayal. And again, as I mentioned, I dove headfirst into all of the books that are out there. You name it, I've probably read it, or I've read a chapter or two and dismissed it because the first 3 chapters were either religious based, which I am not. They were very scientific based. All the acronyms and all the scientific jargon, it wasn't working for me. Or they were very guilty. It's your fault. Were there certain books that I absolutely loved and highlighted the hell out of them? Absolutely, very much so. Have I pulled that information out of those books? Yeah. Were there several other books not related to betrayal that I applied to betrayal? Yes, very much so, because I now see almost everything through the lens of betrayal. So it makes for very interesting experiences when I go to networking events or any kind of event. When people find out what I do, you're a betrayal recovery specialist. That's interesting. First question that I get, have you worked with anybody famous? Yes. They usually wait for me to tell them who it is, which I won't because I do not break confidentiality at all. And then the second question I get for a friend is, what's the number one red flag? Are you curious to know what the number one red flag is? I'm going to answer your question in just a second. Yes, the number one red flag is that your partner develops a relationship with their phone. Yes, their phone. It is suddenly strapped to their hand. They always have it. It goes into the bathroom with them, into the shower with them. They never let it out of their sight. It is face ID faced. It is a 10-digit number to get in there. They tilt it away from you. They develop a relationship with their phone that is completely unhealthy. And Yeah, that's usually the first red flag of many. And the red flags for others just vary, but that consistently is universal, the red flag. So we got a question in the chat. So I'm glad that I asked a question and found my chat. So I apologize for that. What if the boundary is not respected? That's going to be on you. And I'll explain. Let me read the rest of the question for the benefit of the recording, which is, what if the boundary feels like punishment to your partner? I'm going to ask you what the boundary is, because I want to make sure that I answer it well, because I don't understand why your partner would feel like it's punishment. And it depends on how you are wording the boundary. So if you can give me an idea of what the boundary is, that would be great. My partner feels like there are punishments if he's not made aware of them in advance. Sometimes I don't know if I need the boundary until something has happened, and then I have no control and I'm trying to find safety and balance. Example, if you are raging, I will not get into moving vehicle with you. I ended up walking 2.5 miles that night in order to hold my boundary. Proud of you for that. Yes, you held your boundary. Another example, after my partner broke several safety, sobriety, gray area for him and triggers for me, and integrity arguments within a 2-hour time frame. I said, because you chose this and there's no accountability or remorse, for the rest of the day, we will be using email in order to communicate. Okay, and I put examples right into my question. Yes, Heather, I'm sorry, I didn't read the whole thing, so I apologize for that. Some examples of healthy consequences for boundaries. I'm struggling to think of them. Okay. Stick that in. So, some examples so that you have them. Let's think of a few. I'm thinking of a client I just had today, and we did this exercise as well to establish some boundaries. When I don't feel safe, I will put some distance between us. When I don't feel safe, I will go to the bedroom and close the door and ask you not to enter. When I feel disrespected, I will do X, Y, and Z. When I feel whatever it is, I will do X, Y, and Z. You're putting the onus on you. You are putting the boundary on yourself by saying, this is the action that I'm going to take if this happens or if I feel this way. It's your action. You're controlling your action, not controlling their action. Their action is a subset. It's secondary. You're indicating, I do this, if this happens, not if you do this. As again, you is a very confrontational word. And we want to look into our language and the language that we're using. Because again, certain words can be very confrontational. So with that being said, you want to make sure that you set your boundaries about what you are and are not willing to tolerate, to accept, or willing to do. Okay? You definitely want to set boundaries, establish boundaries regarding communication, contact, and transparency. You also want to address all of this with a healthy conversation of, we need some guidelines. We obviously have a very stark difference of opinion. How I feel and how you feel. This is how I feel. This is what's going on for me. So when this happens, this is going to be my reaction. This is what I'm going to do because I'm only in control of myself. When I feel disrespected, I'm going to pack a bag and I'm going to go. So healthy consequences take the form of, when I feel XYZ, I will ABC action. And boundaries take the form of, if XYZ action, then I will ABC. How do you remove you in it? When I feel disrespected, I will pack a bag and go to my mother's. When I discover more information that wasn't disclosed, I will do X, Y, and Z. How can we say the boundary so that our partner understands that though it's not about them right out of the gate, it is about them, but it's not accusatory. It's not defensive. It's not an attack on them. Because again, if we are trying to have reconciliation with our partner, we have to have these difficult conversations, because these difficult conversations now, when they're hard, become so much easier later on. They truly, truly do. Because now you're speaking in a language that isn't accusatory, that isn't defensive. It's just matter of fact. I'm feeling this. When I feel this, again, because they cannot argue with how you feel. When I feel this, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to remove myself from the situation. I'm going to reevaluate our relationship. I'm going to reevaluate where I stand in this relationship. Again, about you and what you're doing. So, again, I invite you to consider your boundaries, whether they are right up against you, whether you're going to give some space, whether you're going to give even more space, whether you're going to keep at arm's length. And this doesn't just apply to your partner. This applies to all the people around you, all the people that might know what's going on and are so filled with judgment and they can tell you everything and whatnot. They don't know your relationship. They don't. I don't know your relationship. I'm giving you very baseline suggestions. I don't know if you have a very volatile relationship where the only way the two of you communicate is by yelling. So you're both communicating the exact same way you used to communicate. Now it's just an added layer of adding in the betrayal as well. They're different nuances. So with that all being said, to move forward in either your existing relationship with your partner, your relationship with yourself, or a new relationship, it does require positive action. And that positive action is incremental. It's absolutely incremental. Just because I buy the most expensive running shoes on the market, the highest end running shoes, all the marathon runners wear them. Just because I buy them doesn't mean I can run a marathon. Incrementally, if I walk every single day, then to a jog, then to a run, 1 mile, 2 miles, 3 miles, it's all incremental. If betrayal has just devastated your relationship, that rebuilding of that relationship will be brand new. It's going to be a brand new relationship. You are not going back to the previous relationship the way it was. It'll never be the way it was. And if that's a really hard reality for you to wrap your head around, I apologize. But I am not here to tell you what you want to hear. I'm here to tell you what it is. So in order to move forward, it definitely requires positive, incremental action. As we all know too well, without effort, yesterday just hangs around on its own. Your past will forever be chained to you if you do not start moving forward incrementally. Okay. From what I've been told, we don't have to express all our boundaries out loud or ahead of time. It's not fair to your partner for you to throw a boundary at them that they're not aware of in the heat of the moment. It's got to be something that is discussed as calmly as it possibly can be. To establish a boundary and having it hold in the heat of the moment is very challenging. So if you're having daily check-ins or weekly check-ins, it might be a moment to be able to talk about it. You know, there's something that's been bothering me. I'm feeling. So when this happens, I will be doing this. So that you let them know, here's what's going on. Here's how I felt the previous time it happened. And if I feel that way again, I am going to do this. Not necessarily a threat, because if you make it sound like a threat, it becomes challenging. It's just a matter of fact. When this happens, I'm going to do this. This is what I'm going to do. Now, the most important thing for you to do is to do it. That's why I said I was very proud of the 2.5 mile walk home. I know, very, very challenging, but you stuck to your guns. And now your partner knows that when you say something, yeah, you mean it. You face the consequences for it, but he or she will always remember it. I had a client who was really struggling with her boundaries. Not to define them, but to hold them. And therefore, every time she broke her own boundary, he didn't believe any of them. And we needed to work on that. So when you set a boundary, make sure that you are going to actually honor it. You have to honor your own boundary. So, not on the subject of boundaries, but do you have any advice on dealing with repetitive and obsessive thoughts? Constantly wanting to check their location, going over what I want to say in an upcoming conversation over and over again, and rethinking old conversations. Ruminating thoughts, they're gut-wrenching. It's as if you are on a merry-go-round and it just never ends. Sometimes it becomes a roller coaster of a ride that you cannot get off. And other times it just becomes the merry-go-round where it's just repetitive over and over and over again. My suggestion for that, take a vacation in your mind. When those thoughts start coming up, talk to yourself and go, you know what? All right, I need a 5-minute reprieve from this. I need to stop thinking about this for 5 minutes. I know I'm going to think about it again, but I need some peace. I need a moment to be able to think. I need solitude, not loneliness. I need solitude. I need to be able to just breathe. And I just need 5 minutes. Just give me 5 minutes. Be surprised. It'll happen. You'll get a 5-minute reprieve, and yes, it'll flood back in. It does. The next day, I need a 6-minute reprieve. I need this to stop. I need to stop thinking about this. I need 6 minutes. I just need 6 minutes. And you keep building up from there. Incrementally. You might need to start with a minute. And you're training the inner critic that you have within you that is just, she's talking all the time. She's letting you have it. You need a reprieve. And you just do. And you need to ask for it. And you need to ask yourself for it. And you need to be committed to it. I need 3 minutes to myself. I need 3 minutes to just breathe. Because sometimes that's actually what we need. Do we have any smokers on the call? Anybody a smoker? Just going to ask you to pop in yes if you are. Okay, I'm going to assume nobody's oh, yes. Beautiful. Okay, so we know that smokers, all right, I'm not knocking you in any way. Please don't misunderstand me as I go through this exercise. Smokers. Okay, what do they do first? They take out the cigarette, they take out the match, the lighter, whatever it is. And what's the first thing they do? They take in a nice big drag. Yes, all the chemicals and so forth and so on. But what they're doing is they're expanding their lungs, they're expanding their chest, they're taking in air all the way down to their hips. And what do? I invite you to do the same thing without the cigarette. Just take that long, deep breath in, expand your chest. Three times. I can tell you this, while you're doing that, really hard to think of anything else. Because you're like, okay, I gotta breathe all the way down. Vanessa said all the way down to my hips. Okay, now it's there. Let me hold it for a second because she told me to hold it. Vanessa said hold it. And then she said to let it out. Vanessa said to do it 3 times. Okay, I just did it once. Okay? Because what we're doing is having you focus on something else. Just to get reprieve. Just to have that flood that rushes in to slow down. We're just putting sandbags in front of it so it doesn't crash into you. Yeah, it's going to go over the sandbags. You're going to get wet. Yes. It'll subside. It truly will. Anybody is more than welcome to, you don't have to come on screen if you don't want to, but you're more than welcome to unmute and ask a question if you'd like. Otherwise, you can throw it back into the chat. I don't bite. What about when you can't get many answers? Good question. So I'm going to safely assume that you're asking questions and you're not getting answers. Alrighty. When that happens, there's a lot of things at play. And it's something that needs to be broken down. Why aren't you getting answers? The first 2 things that come to my mind, and again, don't know your relationship at all, don't know you or your partner at all. Usually in 80% of the cases, it's shame and it's guilt that prohibit men, partners, mostly men, from answering any types of questions. They live in shame. They live in guilt. And they feel that if they say it out loud, it makes it more real. They also feel, and this is the third thing, that you will weaponize their answers. Yeah, that's hard. That's really, really hard for your partner. And again, I'm not advocating for them. Please don't misunderstand me. The betrayer is the betrayer. Sometimes we need to understand what's going on for them. We do need to understand what's going on for them. Not that it's an excuse. No, 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 no. Don't misunderstand me. No. But they will have what I refer to as betrayer amnesia. Because, and again, I don't know the relationship, I don't know the backstory or anything, so I'm really throwing darts. A lot of times they will compartmentalize and simply forget because it was so insignificant to them that I don't remember her name, let alone anything else, because it was just a wham bam, thank you, ma'am kind of thing. If that's the case, again, I'm throwing darts, trying to guess what the situation might have been because we're not having a dialogue. When approached with lots of questions, a firing range of questions, one after the other, they can't process that. They can't think fast enough. Again, they're also thinking of the answer, how to formulate the answer, if they actually have an answer, and then worried about it being weaponized against them. So if you have weaponized previous answers, they're going to be very hesitant to pretty much tell you anything. It's a defense mechanism that they have, and it's really hard to chip. It takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of silence. That you ask a question and you let the question hang. And when they start talking, you do not interrupt. This is the most painful, hardest thing to do because they will say something and you, being hyper vigilant, will know, well, wait a second, that's not what you said before. That shuts them down. It's really hard. You got to sit on your hands. You got to hold your tongue and you got to let them talk. Let them talk. Let them talk. Silence works wonders. It truly does because the question sits there. Nothing else. No follow-up question, nothing. Because then what goes on in their mind, 80% of the time is, wait a second, how come she's not answering? How come she's not asking me another question? How come we're not getting off this topic? I want to get off this topic. Why isn't she? Maybe she knows. Maybe she already knows the answer. Well, wait a second. Maybe she thinks she knows. Maybe this was my mistake. Well, not my mistake. Let me rephrase that because I would ask a question. I already have the answer in mind. Not necessarily the correct answer, but I have formulated an answer to the question that I'm asking. Not giving him a chance to actually ask the question because I too, right in the beginning, I weaponized everything he said. Everything he said was a weapon right back at him. I threw it right back at him all the time. That's challenging. That makes it very, very difficult. So if you want answers, have to be patient. You have to, and again, let me rephrase that. Consider how you're phrasing the question. And lastly, before we close up for the night, you have to think if you really want to know the answer. Will the answer change anything? Or will the answer just be another dagger in your heart? really think about the questions that you're asking and what that answer does to you. And whether you're ready for the answer. Because a lot of partners that come into my office, they will say that they're trying to protect their partner, that they don't want to say it, that it's too painful, or it's too embarrassing, or it's too shameful, or they feel too guilty. Something to consider. So, that went fast, didn't it? 55 minutes just flew right by. Just so that you know, the next date for the next session like this will be on November 11th, which actually is yet another holiday. We will be doing it again on that day. If you found this helpful in any way, I'd really appreciate you sharing the group with others. Whether you're in a variety of Facebook groups or Instagram or wherever you might be, if you know of anybody else that is hurting and would like to participate, this is a free open coaching session for anybody that is looking for support. I'm here to offer it accordingly. As I mentioned, I have a lot of resources on my website. It is understandingear.com. And if there's anything that you need, of course, reach out to me in any capacity. I appreciate your feedback, and if you see me on all the socials or anything, by all means, give me a thumbs up or anything, and we'll go from there. So thank you so much, ladies, for joining this evening. I'll stick around for a couple more minutes in case anybody would like to ask me something individually that didn't want to ask, either in the chat or amongst everyone else. All righty? Thanks so much.